Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, we have selected about 25 verses through which we will explain the entire Gita. Okay? Now, before I start the first verse, I just wanted to ask you a question. I think about 1 week or 2 weeks ago, I received an email. Okay? I received an email from somebody right after the shooting that happened in Paris, where the journalists were killed, and the person actually who had attended one of our retreats, he says, people are asking me that there are these people who are fighting for what they think is just, right? These people, whoever was shooting the journalist, were thinking what they are coming from is just, and they are fighting for a cause. How is it different from Gita, where Arjuna is thinking that he is fighting for a cause? Wow. So, what would you answer to that question?
Are you asking the question or are you going to give the answer?
No, first I'm asking, then I will give my answer. But first I want you to think about things, right? I'm not here to, really, my whole purpose is to make you think through things. Because the whole Gita is not about, what is the translation of this word, that you can easily do at home. Each word you can look up the dictionary and you know exactly what it means, and then you can read any number of translations. This is not my job. My job is to really years and years and years of study that we have done, analyzing the Shastra with incredible amount of precision in thoughts and proper perspectives to transfer those to you. Okay? That's why I'm here. I'm not here to just tell you this verse means, right? So that's why I will make you think in my classes.
Sure. So, Neema, not only that question, allied to that question is who is the enemy?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, in Arjuna actually is in doubt. It's Krishna who says, go ahead, it's the just, you are doing the just thing. Arjuna thinks it's unjust actually, not killing. But he is told, but in everyday life, in that, question is who's the enemy in India, for example. Supposing I say, I can identify any group and say they are my enemies. It doesn't matter, I'll do my duty. I have decided my dharma, which is right, whether it's a property dispute. And it doesn't matter if I kill him, it's nothing going to happen. Why should I feel grief, etc., etc.
Exactly. So that's exactly the question I'm asking. That's why what Gita is saying is something very profound, and it can be misused with any kind of justification, right? You can just use any justification to use as though what Gita is saying. So now you really need to understand what Gita is saying. Otherwise, you can just use this very superficial argument to just justify anything that you do.
That's right.
Right? So you need to then know what Lord Krishna is saying. But this is just your question as to what do you think?
There are two ways of looking at it. One is from the point of view of Mahabharata. The the dispute in Mahabharata was actually a psychosocial dispute. And the Pandavas, including Arjun, tried first to settle it by diplomatic means.
Excellent.
They also used Sri Krishna's wisdom so that the issue can be settled. When the issue could not be settled, and when they were threatened existentially, then they had to take the recourse of war, because that was also the recourse of those times. And that is how Arjun the warrior was actually ready for the war in the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So he tells Sri Krishna to take the chariot in front, and he wants to see who are his enemies. Till the time he sees his people in the enemies, he is a warrior. But when the emotions put a veil in front of his mind, then he deviates from what Sri Krishna calls as Swadharma. So that is how Mahabharata would look at it. As a metaphor, we can look at it differently, but that you tell us later.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? So, the answer very much lies in what Anand says, that, two people could be doing the same thing. This is the whole intricacy of dharma. Okay? What makes one thing right and what makes another thing not so right, there is a whole lot of background. The whole wisdom comes in looking at series of events that lead to that situation. Okay? If you just look at the final outcome and try to say, then it is something that doesn't give you enough information to assess whether this is something which is proper or not. Okay? So that means one has to cultivate one's buddhi in a way that one doesn't use information to just justify things and keep on arguing for the sake of arguing. One uses one's buddhi to get a proper perspective from which one makes proper decisions. Okay? Whole purpose of Gita is to give you that wisdom which enables you to distinguish between seemingly similar situations, right? And use all your analytical capacity to assess, which is very intricate process, what is right and what is wrong. And the whole background is that it doesn't really matter what you think or what you don't think. There are laws. There are laws of dharma and there are laws of karma. They will do their job. Either your thinking can be not aligned to those laws, or your thinking is aligned to those laws. The more your thinking is aligned to those laws, what happens? Your life becomes much easier because you are not rubbing against dharma, using your mind to justify things where there is no wisdom. Okay? So that whole attempt is to understand how laws of dharma operate, what is the wisdom, and then align your life with it. Because even if you can say, oh, I think like that, it doesn't really matter because laws are still going to apply to you. Can you afford to say, I don't care if there are laws of gravity or not, and then you just walk out of here? What will happen? What will happen? You just go from railing and say, no, I don't care if there are, I think that there is no law of gravity, I don't see it.
Absolutely.
What happens? You will fall. Because the laws of gravity work. They don't depend upon your thinking or not thinking. Right? So what is a wise thing to do? To know they exist, try to understand how it works and align your life with it, because by knowing it, don't tell me what difference does it make. It has direct implication for you and your well-being. Right? So your justification does not do anything, because the laws are not operating according to your thinking, they are operating according to certain wisdom. Okay? And the only answer then is to gain that wisdom, so you align your thinking with that wisdom, in light of which you make proper decisions. Yes? So, that's what comes to what led to this whole situation of a war. Okay? We saw, I will just tell you in brief today, so that everybody, I'm sure everybody has read Mahabharata, everybody knows the story, everybody has some interpretation of what the story is. So I will just give you some important facts so that we are all on the same ground, right, with reference to series of events that happened. Okay, so now there was a king and he had two sons. The rule is the eldest son gets the kingdom. Okay, but in this case, the eldest son, who is Dhritarashtra, he is blind. Okay? Dhritarashtra is blind, so according to Dharma Shastra, a blind person cannot rule the kingdom. It's too much. Okay? Now the blind can be just the physical blindness, which itself is a handicap, but if you really use that the blind who does not have proper understanding of what is right and what is wrong, then that person is really blind, blind by ignorance. Okay? But that is not the case here, it is talking about physical blindness. Okay? So you cannot rule the kingdom, so therefore his younger son was given the kingdom, whose name is Pandu. Okay? Now Pandu is very sensitive to the fact that Dhritarashtra is going to be resentful. He understands the psychology of Dhritarashtra and he tries very hard to give him the due respect, so that all this hurt that he is nursing is what? Kept under check. So what he would do is, he would go from time to time to the forest and tell him that while I am away, you rule the kingdom in my absence. Right? So that would satisfy Dhritarashtra's ego. Right? But Pandu himself had an event where he had gone for hunting to the forest, and what he thought was an animal, and he shot, that happened to be a couple who was, a yogi and his wife, so he shot them. Okay. Now they were together and he realizes right after shooting, he realizes the fact that this doesn't seem to be an animal. Okay. He goes there and those two are dying and they tell him, right? Now the way it is presented is that they curse him, right? But what we are talking about here is the laws. Okay? If you perform an action, you are responsible for the results of that result. You can't claim I was ignorant, because you are given the capacity to find out. And given the capacity to find out and using that capacity in a proper way is your responsibility. If you don't do the job, then what? You can't escape from the consequences. Okay? And this is something which is what we call cause and effect relationship. If you study physics, there is a very simple law of what? Action, reaction. Right? So when we are talking about the laws of cause and effect, we are not talking about something which is alien, which is not, it's something which is very much part of the laws of the universe. Every action has equal and opposite reaction. Okay? So this is where laws of karma include that given thing. You are given the free will to act. You are also given the mind to assess situations. Either you can what? Justify things and waste away your capacity to assess accurately, or you can what? Equip your buddhi in a way that you can assess situations accurately and act according to what is called for in that given situation. Okay? And once you have performed an action, you can't avoid the consequences of those actions. Okay? So therefore, what happens is, Pandu had the responsibility to make sure who it is that he is killing, killed two human beings, therefore he had to pay for it. Now, that how and the manner in which he had to pay for was also in keeping with this situation. See how targeted everything is. He was told, because the husband and wife were together, so he was told that any time you try to be intimate with your wives, that is the time that you will lose your life. Why? Because this is exactly connected to the situation. This is what gives us insight into the precision with which the laws of karma work. Okay? So therefore, now he is stuck with this thing that he cannot be close to his wife, because that would be his last day. Okay? Now, Kunti, luckily, she had served one sage and she had a boon that she could have sons according to her wish. Okay? So she used, now she is a wife of Pandu, so she cannot be having sons through Pandu, but she had that capacity which gave rise to 5 sons who are what we call Pandavas. Okay? She had one more. When she was given the boon, she wanted to test it. And when she tried to test it, she was not even married yet, and she was looking at the son and she says, now I need son from you. Okay? And who was born? Karna. But because she was not married then, she didn't know what to do with this son. This is again impulsive acts, huge repercussions. Right? Cause and effect. She did not know how to handle this whole coming of a child. What did she do? Just left it. Left it and prayed. Let this child be taken care of. Right? It was highly painful for her, but she had to do it because she saw no other choice. Okay? Then the child was picked up by a charioteer and he was raised, and that is Karna. Okay? Now, Kunti, after being married to Pandu, now the same thing which turned out to be what? The Karna's birth was such a trauma for Kunti. Pandava's birth became what? A blessing. Right? The same boon can be either what? A trauma, or it can be a blessing depending upon how you use it. And when you use it, the time, the understanding and the attitude with which you use it. Life is all about wisdom, proper attitudes, proper choices. It's all about that. Okay? So the same sons became what? The other sons became a blessing. Okay? So 5 sons were born. Yudhishthira was born from Lord Yama. That's why he is called Dharmaputra. Okay. Then Bhima was born from Lord Vayu. Arjuna from Indra. Okay. Nakula and Sahadeva from the Ashwin twins, Ashwin Kumar. Okay. So that's why Kunti had these 5 sons. Okay. And Dhritarashtra, on the other hand, was married to Gandhari, okay, and they had 100 sons, who are called what?
Kauravas.
Kauravas. Okay? So you have Pandavas and Kauravas, and once, just like a normal practice, Pandu had gone to the forest, okay, just to take a retreat from his day-to-day responsibility, and there he got attracted to his second wife, and then he tried to be close to her, and Pandu died. Okay? So this is where again he knew that the minute he gets close, what? That is going to be his last day. What was that which was, in spite of knowing, what was pushing him? What was pushing him to do something which will actually lead to his own destruction?
It's desire.
Yeah. Unchecked desire. The force of unchecked desire is so strong that it what? Totally colors your thinking. Okay? It's not lack of knowledge. In spite of knowledge, what? It just takes you on a tangent. And you have what? No mastery. You have no capacity to navigate your desire. It just takes you on a tangent. Okay? So this is what is seen, and then what? There is a consequence. Consequence related to unchecked desire, compounded with what? The past action that he had done. Right? How the present is interacting with the past to produce what? The results that are given to you. Okay? So this is where you see connections within connections in your living. Okay? So therefore Pandu dies. Now the question is, who is going to be the next king? Okay? According to Dharma Shastra, the rule is whoever is the eldest of the present king becomes the king. So if you go by that criteria, who becomes the king? Yudhishthira. Right? Now, there is but Duryodhana thinks otherwise. Duryodhana argues, and he says that my father was supposed to be the king. He could not be the king because he was blind. I am the eldest of my father. I should be the king because I am not blind. Right? That is his thinking. Which doesn't seem to be like a very wrong thinking. This is again also what I said, is just, we have a picture of all good and all bad. Life is full of nuances, intricacies. You have to be subtle in your analysis of dharma. If you make one wrong mistake, what? There are series of repercussions. Series. And it becomes what? Multiplies. Okay? So this is where he says that, okay, I am the legitimate, I should be the king. Okay? Then the second criteria is applied. He says, okay, now if the first criteria you do not agree with, there is a second criteria. Of all the cousins, who is the eldest? Okay. Even if you use that criteria, Yudhishthira was older than Duryodhana. Okay. So therefore, the kingdom, according to the rules of Shastra, should go to Yudhishthira. Okay. Duryodhana refuses. He says, no way. Okay. I am not going to part with this kingdom. Now Dhritarashtra is stuck. He is stuck because he doesn't know what to do now. Okay. What he, at that given point in time, he had many different options. What were the options that he had with him?
He has to go according to the rule.
Either he can go exactly according to the rule, that's one choice. What is the other choice?
And support his son.
The other,
Because of attachment.
there are two spectrums. Very good. There is one spectrum which is go totally with dharma, right, and tell his son that no, according to dharma, Yudhishthira is legitimately what? The king. The other spectrum is what? Just go for his son, right, and
Blind
say
love.
that blind love, right? Just go with whatever my son wants, somehow justify, right, and go along with his logic and what? Let him do whatever he wants to do. In between, we generally, when we view dharma, this is our understanding. Either at this spectrum or that spectrum. There are lots of options which are available in between. Lots of options. Some tilting more towards right and some tilting more towards not so right. What is the option that he chose? Support his son, but not totally. Right? He said, he tried to compromise. He said, you have to give them something. Right? So that little something, now that something also could have been what? In the whole spectrum. There was a whole choice. Please understand. He could have said, each one get exact equal parts. What did he say? For the sake of, he wanted to feel that he was not doing anything wrong. So he says, you divide the kingdom. And how did Duryodhana divide the kingdom? All the good parts he kept.
Prosperous parts.
Most prosperous parts he kept. And one little totally barren part,
He gave.
right, which was totally useless, was given to Pandavas. So, please understand, Dhritarashtra, he did have some sense of dharma. He wanted to pay a lip service to being fair, right? But he could have, right, been even much more fair, either by just following dharma completely or what? Dividing it more equally. Here, in the name of justice, he used the name of justice to what?
For his own.
For his own agenda. This is what we say, that, just by saying, yes, but he divided, that division, what was the intention, the way in which it was divided, these are the nuances. Any assessment of dharma requires for you to look into the details. Okay, so therefore he thought that he was following dharma because he was what? Dividing it. Okay, but it was divided totally against Pandava and totally in favor of Kaurava. Okay, now Pandavas, they did not resist. They took which was given to them without any major problem. Is it that they didn't realize that it was totally unfair division? Now, Yudhishthira himself, he also had a choice. Please understand. He had a choice, either what? To stick to that I am the one who is legitimate king and I want all of it. He could have done that. He had a choice. Or he could have what? Compromised, and he could have said what? I am willing to compromise, but give me a fair share. I am willing to share, but give me a fair share. This is totally skewed against me. Or he also had a choice to go along with that choice. He also had that choice. What did he do? He went along. He said, fine. Okay. He used his free will to say, it is fine with me. After having used his free will, Did he sit and grumble all the time? Look at my cousins, they are so unfair, they are so, we have been victimized and I'm really nursing hatred towards him did he do that? How did he use his free will? Whatever was given to him, that barren land, using his free will, he made it what? Extremely prosperous. Look at the proactiveness, understand dharma. Dharma is very dynamic. Look at the minds of human beings, the choices that we have, the choices that we make, the life that we create as a result. Okay. Using that choice, what happened? They made it very prosperous. Now, Duryodhana had another choice to make. He could have seen that, okay, I have major share of the kingdom, they have that little barren part that I gave them. They worked hard and they have made it prosperous, let them enjoy it. That was one choice he had. The second choice he had was what?
Grab that too.
I want that also.
I want that also. I cannot stand, right, when they have already settled for something so much less and they are happy. They are not complaining, they are not trying to fight, they are not trying to do anything, they are not disturbing him. Okay, but even that he cannot stand. So now he designs many different plots to what?
Dislodge these people.
Yeah, dislodge his people and also kill them. Okay, there was this whole palace which was made where what? It was a wax palace. They were invited to go there. As soon as they reached, it was what? Supposed to be on fire. That would finish them all. Luckily, okay, who came to know that this is a plot? Vidur came to know, right? Vidur came to know, and this is also we see the laws of dharma. Okay? If you are following, don't think that you are living in a dumb universe. The universe, according to the Vedic vision, is manifestation of Ishvara. And all these different laws that you see, they are intelligent laws. They take into consideration what? The actions, and they give result. We think that the laws of gravity are just mechanical, they have no mind. According to the Vedic vision, every law is, as we will see later, manifestation of Ishvara. So that means there is an intelligence behind every law. Why that law is what it is going to do in the universe is all extremely well designed in connection with every other law. The laws of biology don't work totally independently of laws of physics. The laws of anatomy don't work independently of physics and biology. Each one is part of one whole great design of things. That great design which makes every law what it is and decides its interaction with each other is what we call Ishvara. Okay? So therefore, that law of dharma is also one of the manifestation of Ishvara. Every time you perform an action which is in keeping with dharma, it cannot but be paid.
But then I have to know what dharma is.
Yeah, so this is why we are analyzing what is dharma. Here the whole analysis is about dharma, the choices and the choices that we make. Because they try to not what? Settle for something which is less and not complain, right? If they had complained and they had tried to what? Give hard time to Duryodhana and his brothers, what? They would be just normal people. They used it proactively. This is what we are discussing dharma, right? I'm making you see what is dharma. Okay. Therefore, yes.
Isn't accepting adharma wrong?
So we will see, as I said, there are degrees. What I'm trying to show you is there is this whole big spectrum. On one hand, there is this so-called absolute right. On the other hand, there is what we call wrong. And then there is this whole range. And a human, generally, our understanding of dharma is what? Either it's here or it is here. What I'm trying to show you is there is a whole big range, and within this range, where you are, the results will be given exactly according to where you are. And what is your attempt? To be as close to dharma as possible. Because what kind of results you are searching for? Something which is favorable to you. You are interested in your well-being. And this is where we say, Yudhishthira had a choice. He had a range of choices. Either just go with, no, this is my right and I just need that and I'm not going to settle for anything, or ask for equal share. This is what I'm saying. All these choices is what we say your understanding of dharma. Or what? Settle for something which was given to them, which was what? A barren land, and constantly complain. That was also their choice. Or use it proactively. I want you to understand the dynamic understanding of dharma. Otherwise we get stuck with what? Some extremes, and we miss whole nuances in which the life is lived.
And also to add that at that particular point, the Pandavas must have done their own resource analysis.
Yes.
That to be proactive was wiser than to be assertive at that time.
Yes.
So they consciously took a submissive strategy till
That's
the
right.
point they were able to build up their resources. And when they built up their resources, then only they stood assertively.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important not to have an impulsive action,
Yes.
but to think of your resources and then you act accordingly.
Absolutely. Right. Now, but you're right, absolutely. One thing is the resources, second is the intention.
Intention.
Right?
Yes.
So, there again, what I want you to see is that because Yudhishthira had what? Followed dharma much more than what in fact was required of him.
That's right. That is why he was called Dharma.
You
That
see?
is my question.
Exactly.
Isn't accepting adharma and adharma?
So, this is good. But at that point, that's why we'll see the series of things which culminate into that. Right? Because there are series of events which culminate into this war. Okay? Now, he decided to let go. He decided. But having decided to let go, he was not resentful. Please understand. Because you can decide to let go and you can be resentful or you can be proactive.
Yeah.
This is where we say every step we have a choice. Okay? And he decided not to be resentful and just do his part of making the kingdom prosperous. Very proactive. Okay? Having done that, so there are series of what? Intelligent decisions where you try to understand, you try to do with whatever you have, try to avoid the conflict, act responsibly, right? So many different occasions they made those choices where they let go a lot more than what they should have. Okay? When you do that, what? The order repays. How does it repay? When there was a whole big plan of eliminating them, what happened? A person in form of Vidura, Vidura is standing for what? Wise person, figures out that this is a big plot. They are made aware of that plot. This is how the dharma works, not through, the forces work through what? Human beings, situations, information that is available to you. Okay? So therefore, this information that they are going to be killed is what? Available to them. They create an escape route. What happens? They survive. Now, Duryodhana cannot stand the fact that now they are surviving and there is no way to take away that kingdom that they have. Then Shakuni says that I have this whole thing of what? Cheating. This, the dice, he had that capacity to what? Manipulate the dice according to his wish. So call now, here Duryodhana was asked to call Yudhishthira to play a game of dice. And Shakuni was confident that he can manipulate the dice in a way that what? They will lose. And then they said, okay, you take away the kingdom, you take away anything that you want through this game of dice. So it was a setup. Okay? Now, Manjula's question is very right. Now, Yudhishthira was invited to play a game of dice. He had a choice. Okay? He had a choice whether to go and play that game of dice or what? To refuse. He had that choice. Somebody who is so dharma oriented, right? Now, what did he do? He looked at what we call Dharma Shastra. There was one rule which said that the king, when he is invited to play this game of dice, he cannot refuse. Now, this is where I say that again you have a choice of either blindly following that rule or interpreting it. He could have, the whole Mahabharata is about that if you just want to follow dharma blindly
Blinkers.
and don't see the entire situation, you can be what? Taken on a tangent.
Yeah.
Because he could have said, yes, this is a rule, okay, but if he knows that there is a setup where there is what? They are not going to play a fair game, he could have refused and he would have been right in refusing it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so he, according to him, he was following dharma, but actually what happened? It is adharma. Right? Because he failed to see the totality of the situation. He got carried away by just a textbook rule. And what does Krishna represent? Krishna represents that dharma has to be interpreted according to what?
Situations and circumstances.
Exactly, seeing the totality of the situation. You can't just go by textbook rules and say this is what it is and I forget about everything else. If life was just to be lived by the rules, life would be easy. What makes life very dynamic? Every situation that comes to you, it has a choice. And either you can make choice, what? Which is what? As per the book, or go totally against dharma, or interpret dharma accurately, or be somewhere in between the spectrum. You have all these different choices. What you do in that given situation. That's your wisdom.
Neema, just
Yes.
a minor clarification, not a question. Thing is, whenever we make choices,
Yeah,
we make choices unless we have full information about them.
yes.
So this guy was a dharma putra, everything. I mean, he didn't have the basic wisdom to say this will lead to this or that will lead to this or Shakuni is, or is this the whole thing a story, illustrative story? Is the whole Mahabharata an illustrative story of dharma versus adharma?
It's showing human mind. Showing human mind where it can be highly noble, where it can go on a tangent.
So question is,
So,
today, supposing I have to go by rules which are today, do I live in this society or do I think in terms of values then, or do I think of the laws which were applicable then, or were they metaphors? For example, abducting abducting a woman to get her married is perfectly according to the Kshatriya dharma, you know.
no, we are not talking, let's just stick to this story because these stories are showing the nuances. Otherwise we get into very, when there is no end to these.
This is part of Mahabharata.
We are talking about cultivating human choices.
Okay.
Right? The whole topic here is cultivating human choice.
See
Okay?
here what we can
Otherwise,
say,
yeah.
that there is the power of convention. There are conventions in a society, whether it's this society or this, and even if they are convention, even if they are very powerful, and a king himself has to submit himself to this convention, still what Neema is saying is that we can here exercise our choice. Whether it is time of Mahabharata or modern society, there are also conventions in our society, but you are always free to go above conventions also. But not just like that, assessing what is happening.
Sure.
We are talking about the subtlety of mind which assesses situations. Otherwise, we can always talk about so many things which are wrong in the society and so many things. That is endless. It is all about us, the choices that we make and how we get right perspective to things. These stories provide us certain insight into how the most dharmic person can totally go on a tangent. And this is something which is, we are not saying Yudhishthira we are not glorifying him. Up to certain point we are glorifying him by saying that yeah, he was proactive, but in this case he was misguided. So it's not like one person is always dharma. What represents proper understanding of dharma, which is dynamic, which is changing all the time, is Lord Krishna's perspective on dharma. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So we have to, sorry I went a little bit longer, but now that is 10:10, we have to go to temple to Niru's ritual. Right? So let's stop. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.